New on Curiosity Stream.
I'm James Burke. I'm going to take you on a journey through time.
James Burke's visionary series returns, reimagined for our time.
Now, this is all uncharted territory.
The Washington Post hails Burke as one of the most intriguing minds in the Western world. The New York Times raves he careens from one great moment in history to another.
Where do we want to go from here?
Experience all new connections.
So what's the next connection?
With monthly, annual, and bundled plans, find the one that works for you at CuriosityStream.com.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than choosing to keep the Grinch away from the toy drive.
Who's going to deliver the toys to the kids?
What about me, the Grinch?
No.
Yep, even easier than that.
You steal the presents one time.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Capital One NA, member FDIC. Copyright Dr. Seuss Enterprises. Copyright Turner Entertainment Company.
Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibis, welcome to a second episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. This one's not going to be as long as the earlier one, but it's been a while since I've updated on Alec Murdaugh, which is kind of a local case for me, and it's hard to keep up because it's like every other day this dude's getting more charges. And there's some new people in the game now, so we're going to fill you in on that. But first, our music fact for this episode has to do with one of my favorite songs, Hotel California by the Eagles. And, you know, that song has been the subject of speculation for decades. A lot of people thought it was about devil worshiping and all this other crazy stuff. But actually, it was just written about excess in America. And so the late, great Glenn Frey said that record explores the underbelly of success, the darker side of paradise, which was sort of what we were experiencing in Los Angeles at that time. And a little fun fact about one of the lyrics, the line says they stab it with their steely knives, but they just can't kill the beast. That's actually a little jab at Steely Dan. The bands shared the same manager and they had a really friendly rivalry. So that was interesting. I did not know that. I thought literally they were trying to stab a beast. So anyways, all right, let's get into Murdaugh madness. Just all the time. Somebody's going down with that ship. He was indicted again last week by a grand jury, bringing the total number of charges against him, by the way, to 90. Also, Spencer Roberts and Jerry Rivers were also indicted right along with him. We'll get to who they are and how they fit in just a second. But for Alec's new charges, 4 counts of obtaining a signature or property by false pretenses with a value of $10,000 or more, 2 counts of money laundering with a value of $20,000 to $100,000, 1 count of money laundering value $100,000 or more, and 2 counts of computer crime value worth more than $10,000. For these charges alone, 90 years is what he's facing in prison. That dude is going to be in prison until the Lord comes back, y'all. He's going to hear the trumpets. So in these indictments, he's accused of stealing a total of $295,000 from his brother and the law firm that his great-grandfather started way back when. So how it goes is attorneys at the firm would sometimes loan money to the law firm at the very beginning of the year to cover expenses, and then they would get repaid for that. So a check for $121,000 was mistakenly given to Alec and not his brother. So Alec pointed out the mistake and said the check was supposed to go to him. And then he had another one issued so it wouldn't show up in their accounting review. And he also took $175,000 in settlement monies that was due to the law firm. So just good grief, man. It's just like how he might break a record for the number of indictments a single person has had. And for somebody to be so prominent in this Southern dynasty, essentially, Oh man, this is going to make for some good documentaries way down the road. Um, it says the money laundering and computer crimes charges came from him hiding the money from banking regulations through smaller online transfers and also checks he wrote to himself and others. And I'm going to put a graphic up here because we have a couple of new players. And let me get that pulled up if you're on YouTube. So the new guy, Spencer Roberts, who is pictured right beside Alec in this graphic, he was indicted for one count of obtaining a signature or property by false pretenses of value of $10,000 or more, one count of money laundering valuing $20,000 to $100,000, and one count of computer crime value worth more than $10,000, one count of insurance fraud, and he's facing 50 plus years for those charges. So Roberts was charged on August 9th of this year on fraud charges for acquiring $24,000 of COVID-19 unemployment insurance illegally by saying he was laid off at the car wash where he worked at. But the problem is this car wash didn't even exist. So that's unrelated to Murdaugh. But good grief, man. So he's also charged with obtaining property by false pretenses. And at his bond hearing for that on August the 11th, Assistant Attorney General Waters linked Spencer to these crimes surrounding Alec. What happened was detective had found evidence that Spencer received several check payments from Alec, and search warrants tied to those payments came up with illegal drugs, a lot of cash, and a handgun. He's alleged to be a key part of a pipeline that was supplying Alec and Curtis Eddie Smith with their drugs. So Eddie Smith right there in the middle, he was the one that was at the roadside shooting with Alex, if you remember. So sources have told mainstream media that this is how it went down. Murdaugh would give checks of stolen money to Curtis Eddie Smith, who would cash them. He would give the cash to Spencer, who would use the cash to buy drugs. And then Spencer would give the drugs to Curtis, who would then give them to Alec. Now, what's curious is that the prosecutor's comments on the case were made just before the hearing that revoked the bond for Curtis Eddie Smith. And the reason his bond was revoked is because he lied about his financial status when his initial bond was set. So, gosh, man, these guys are just bad. Jerry Rivers, who is the guy on the far right, he was indicted for obstruction of justice, a felony which is punishable by up to 10 years in prison. He's accused of removing a cell phone belonging to someone under arrest from a scene where law enforcement was conducting a search warrant. And prosecutors said Rivers was present at a gambling location involving Spencer Roberts. So they executed this search warrant and arrested Spencer. And investigators told other people at the scene, including Rivers, of the search warrant to empty their pockets. So police found 15 grams of heroin and crack. And they were also trying to locate Spencer's cell phone. So here's how Jerry comes in. Jerry allegedly took the phone away from the scene, and he admitted that he did just that when confronted by police. But when he turned in the phone, it was a different phone. So Rivers is alleged to have received $89,000 in checks from Alec or other defendants that could have helped launder large amounts of money that came from Murdaugh. The indictment says in connection with a crime involving narcotics, dangerous drugs, or controlled substances, and such crime being of a multi-county nature and having transpired and having significance in more than one county in the state. He was given a bond of $150,000 and has to submit to GPS monitoring. Kind of wondering if maybe they're not going to try to get him to talk. So the grand total that Alex so far has been accused of defrauding people of is like $8.7 million. So kind of separate from these new indictments, his attorney held a press conference saying that this was a trial by ambush as far as the double murders go. And Harpootlian said the prosecution is withholding evidence in that murder case, and that South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson's office has failed to produce discovery within that 30-day window. He says, this is again gotcha prosecution, trial by ambush. Give us the stuff. You went to a grand jury and said you have enough evidence to convict Alec and convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt. Where is it? I don't have a shred of paper. I don't have an email. I don't have an exhibit. I don't have any evidence. Somebody wants to know about blood spatter. All I know about blood spatter is what I read in some blog. He's probably referring to Fitz News because they're the ones that broke that story, and they're not huge fans, obviously, of those guys. He said, I've never seen any blood spatter evidence. They want to obscure this by saying, well, we need to get this sealed. This needs to be protected. We don't want crime scene photos left out on tables. And he said, that is hooey. This case needs to be resolved, not just for Murdaugh, but for the judicial system, for the state of South Carolina. We need to put this behind us and move on. People say to me, how could you represent this guy? John Adams, the second president of the United States, represented the British soldiers who massacred the colonial protesters on the Boston Common. 4 were acquitted, 2 were hung. It's my duty to do that. It's what keeps this country free. Abraham Lincoln defended 22 murder cases. Don't they teach civics in high school anymore? So that's kind of the latest. Of course, it's early in the week, so we may be updating more charges on Murdaugh. The thing is, his attorney's wanting to go to trial like in January for this. I hope not, because we got Vallow Daybell and I can't multitask like that. But we will see. If he hasn't gotten discovery, I definitely think it'll be a hot minute. Another quick update on the Aiden Fucci trial, who's accused of brutally murdering Tristan Bailey in Florida. He's not going to face trial now until February because a judge granted the defense's request to delay. His attorneys say they need more time to interview witnesses and just work that case. He's being tried as an adult in a murder. And the defense has asked that the court not be shown the autopsy photos of Tristan. I always think that's crazy because juries need to see the brutality that went into these crimes to be able to make a determination when considering these cases. I know that it's never good for the defense, for attorneys to see such brutal crime scene or autopsy pictures, but it's part of the case. It's why we're here. This hasn't been ruled on yet, and his attorney, Rosemary Peoples, withdrew a motion to prohibit video cameras from streaming from the courtroom during jury selection. And she also withdrew a motion to close the pretrial hearing. So that should be interesting. I would like to watch those. If you're on Twitter, Chasing Paper is Eric, and he always puts out a lot of these documents from this trial. So if you're interested, give him a follow. A little update also about Josh Duggar. His attorney filed a second motion to extend the deadline for filing the appeal brief in the appeals court. He already had an extension on July 28th, with the August 22nd, which is today, being that deadline. The new deadline now is September 12th. In the filing, his attorney said the length of the transcript arising out of this criminal jury trial, the complexity of the possible issues on appeal, and the need for undersigned counsel to confer with Duggar. As we know, Duggar is at a federal prison right outside of Dallas, Texas. Been nice not hearing about his little perverted butt for a hot minute. He's trash. I hope he serves every day of his sentence that he possibly can under federal guidelines and all that jazz. I think child molestation, child pornography cases, to me, there should be no consideration of you being a first-time offender or anything like that. But anyways, so this was just a little very quick episode to update Some other things that we're covering loosely: Wagner trial. They're still doing jury selection. That should be starting soon, maybe a week, 2 weeks at the most. So tomorrow, I promise you guys, we're hopping back on the Vallow Daybell Mega Series. Tonight, 10:30 Eastern, I'll be live on Web Sleuths, and we're going to talk Vallow Daybell. We're going to talk about this new Netflix documentary Colby did that we just got the trailer for today. Looks very, very interesting. There are cell phone calls that are recorded between him and his mom, I believe, when she was in jail. Some new videos I haven't seen. That comes out September 14th. And then I'm sure we'll touch on the hearing last week and just general stuff. So I'll put that link out on social media as soon as I get it. Hope you guys have a good rest of your night. We will see you tomorrow.
New on Curiosity Stream.
I'm James Burke. I'm going to take you on a journey through time.
James Burke's visionary series returns, reimagined for our time.
Now, this is all uncharted territory.
The Washington Post hails Burke as one of the most intriguing minds in the Western world. The New York Times raves he careens from one great moment in history to another.
Where do we want to go from here?
Experience all new connections.
So what's the next connection?
With monthly, annual, and bundled plans, find the one that works for you at curiositystream.com.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than choosing to keep the Grinch away from the toy drive.
Who's going to deliver the toys to the kids?
What about me, the Grinch?
No.
Yep, even easier than that.
You steal the presents one time.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Capital One NA, member FDIC. Copyright Dr. Seuss Enterprises. Copyright Turner Entertainment Company.